Hello, everyone. My name is Tiffany. I'm the Tipsy Artist, and today we are painting this super adorable cardinal, and it's called I'll Always Have Memories of You. And I know that my mom, every time she sees a cardinal in the yard, she screams and scares. I say something not right, scares the you know what out of me. But yeah, she always goes, Cardinal, Cardinal, and it just scares me so much. But then she's super excited. And then there's always that, when they're near, you know that somebody that you really love who has passed on is coming back to visit you. So that's what this sweet little painting is all about. And this is the inspiration. This is from one of my original paintings. And so I have this in prints and it's on our website, tipsyartist.com. I also have decided to turn it into a painting kit, and we're also painting it in all my studio classes. So it's been really popular. So this gives you an idea of what our inspiration is, what it looks like when it's in a larger size. And then we're going to be doing a really sweet 9x12 today with our painting kit. So we're going to shift gears here in just a few seconds, and I'm going to switch camera views, and we're going to get a nice up close personal view of the canvas from an aerial point of view, so that you can hang out with me and learn how to paint if you want, or just hang out and be relaxed, or whatever you want to do. All right, so we're going to switch views here. Let me put on my peepers so that I can see. And we'll talk about the whole process from start to finish. All right, here we go. Okay. All right, so I got to get over there. A little seat on wheels here. Different stool. All right, we're in position. Okay, so with our painting kits, we have all the supplies that you need. We have your paint that comes with it, little bundle of tools, little party favor, and a little apron, napkins. This is what your brushes look like when they're out, a palette knife with this one, pencil, a little permanent marker here. The only thing that doesn't come with your painting kit is the water, but it has and here's your canvas panel, it comes with it, transfer paper, and then the traceable line art. All right, so let's go ahead and start talking about this traceable here first. Our classes are designed for beginners. So we absolutely take out all the hard stuff, which is all this drawing. This makes it a lot easier. So let's talk about how to set this up. All right, so you've got your transfer paper here. And again, this comes with the kit along with the canvas panel. So I always make sure that the transfer paper dull gray side faces up, shiny black side faces the canvas. I do just a couple of pieces of tape right up here at the very top, and I just place it right in the center. And then the transfer, the traceable here, also right in the center, and just a couple of pieces of tape right up here at the top. Then I use that pencil, and I go ahead and just basically just act like you're drawing here, well, you are drawing, but you're just tracing right over the top. Every single line, you're going to go ahead and just draw right over the top. And if there is a space that is kind of colored in, like there's just one on this one, it's just the eye. So I do go ahead and color all this in, and then you'll be all set. All right, now once you're done, and by the way, as you work on this, one of the reasons why I only tape up at the top, leave this free and clear, so that you can lift this up and check your work as you go and make sure that you get all the details. That's super important before you lift off this tape, because once you lift that up, you're never going to be able to come back and like match that up. So again, really important to go ahead, check your work really carefully, make sure that it's all in place, and then you can go ahead and remove this. Now, I have worked ahead a little bit because I'm going to tell you that the transfer process, to pull that up to the trash there. All right, the transfer process basically will look just like a pencil line on there. And then we have included a permanent marker in your kit. So what I do is I come back over everything that looks like a pencil line that we just traced, and I go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and do a line. Finish that off right there. But I do a hard black line over the entire design. And I also do little helpful things like doing black in and around the face and the delicate part of that eye. And then one other helpful hint here on the eye that's really important is you don't want to lose the shape of the eye, because it's kind of like black around the blackened shape of the eye. So I leave a teeny tiny little white line around that eye so that that eye shape stays intact. Because even on the painting, that's going to appear to have almost like a light gray look around the eye. And let me give you a visual on that again, just really up close. So you can see how that's like a really light gray there. So we're going to leave that as just white space so that that stays intact. And that way you don't lose that beautiful eye in there. All right, so we are good to go on this. So I'm done using this and this. And again, these are great, helpful tools for beginners to use. All right, so let's see, scoot this over just a little bit. All right, so again, kit has everything you need except for water. Make sure you have that nearby. And then your setup should look pretty much just like this. I'm also going to get out our paint. So we're using some Royal and Langnickel paint today. Lovely paint here. Oh, you know what? I forgot to get my little plates. I'll have those nearby. Got everything. I'm looking around like going, okay, do I have it nearby? I do have some. Ah, sorry about that. Okay, so thank you for your patience. Maybe that was a good time for you to, go get a drink of wine or go to the potty or something like that. All right, so I've got my paint plates out nearby here, which yours will be with your kids, so you're going to be all good and organized, unlike I am right at this very moment. All right, so we're going to start with our sky first, and we'll be using some primary cyan blue in our background. So every time you take the cap off here, you're going to notice there is this silver foil lining on these particular paints. So you do have to lift that off before that paint can flow freely out of that tube. And I'm just going to do a nice little, like a dime-sized dollop of that. Start with that. I think I want a little bit of Viridian in my sky. Let's do a little tiny amount of this sometimes. It kind of just adds just a little tiny hue of turquoise, which can be quite lovely. Let me do a little bit of that just in case. And then there are also some shades of gray in here too. So I'd like to have just a little bit of black nearby. Let's put it out. Pea Size amount of that. All right, now let's talk about our other tools here. All right, we have a palette knife. I'm going to use that a little bit closer to the end of the class. But we have our little family of brushes here. We have our mama brush, and then our little buddy, and then our little bit here. All right, so we are going to go ahead and get started with our mama brush. Now your brush will be brand new, so it might be a little bit stiff. So I'm going to recommend doing a little swirl here in the water, and then go ahead and just dry off, do a little touch on your napkin, and then it'll be all set. The brush will be flexible and easy to use. All right, also I had some titanium white already out on this plate. So getting that out, we want to make sure we have like a nice, at least quarter-size dollop of that. And again, this is our titanium white. So I already had some out, so but that's what it looks like. You want to make sure you have some titanium white out also. So recap on our colors here. We have some titanium white, and then we will have a little pea-size amount of the Mars black. And then we will have a little pea-size amount of the primary cyan blue, and then a little pea-size amount of the Viridian. So I will let you know that if you like this really pale blue, just much more neutral that way, you'll not want to use the Viridian. That kind of brings in again a little bit more of like a teal turquoise hue to the sky. So it's up to you, it's optional. But if you like it more pale blue, then just stick with primary cyan blue and your white. All right, so I'm going to take my mama brush. I'm going to pick up a nice big dollop of that white, a titanium white, and then we're going to start with just a little tiny corner touch of that primary cyan blue. And we're going to work that into the white, and that makes that really pretty pale blue. See, it's very similar to what we have there. And I'm going to go ahead and start to push this down into like vertical strokes here into the background. And I can do a light wash over that branch because it bleeds through. And you can add a little bit of water to the paint as well, so that it definitely makes it a bit more translucent over that branch, and you can still see that shape. That way you do not lose the shape that you traced. Now, if you do want to do cut and work more meticulously, you certainly can. What you'll need to do is just hold the brush like a pencil, use that line edge, and you can carefully cut in around that shape. If doing this type of wash all over the top scares you or just goes against your type A grain, you know, I totally get that. So I've been painting a long time, and even a lot of the beginners that I teach this technique to, where it bleeds through, they love it because it just helps them be a little bit more free and not too concerned about cut and work. So again, a little bit of water helps that flow into the space. It also helps make it just a little bit more translucent over that line to where I definitely still see it. And then I can add a little bit of white here and then drag that through that vertical space. Now, if you want a little bit of gray in here, add just a little tiny corner touch of the black, and with the white, let's mix those up. And you can also start to kind of push that into the background here, nice vertical strokes. Go up and down. Just a little bit of water there, so it would make it a little bit more fluid and translucent over that branch. And again, if you want to do cutting work, then just hold the brush like a pencil, cut in around that shape, and then pull down from that shape. Light vertical touches. Now I'm going to show you what it looks like to have just a hint of turquoise too. So we're going to do a little touch of that Viridian, little touch of primary cyan blue, and the white. We're going to work those two together. See, that's a really pretty color. So actually, I'd like to add a little bit of that in. So I'm just kind of pull that into the background. Nice vertical touches here. Do pure white in here too, and just kind of run that up through the canvas. Again, nice touches of pure white too, really nice. Nice light, soft touches here. A little bit of one. Start touching into both of the mixes, some with the light blue, some with a little bit of Viridian in there. And just running this up and down here. A little bit of white as I go. Running that in vertical strokes. Now, as I'm running in some of these vertical strokes, I want to make sure and get nice little touches of that white that kind of are just there up on top of the surface area, instead of just getting completely blended in. And so what I'll do there is I'll hold my brush more over to the side, parallel to the canvas. And that gives me a much lighter hand, allows more of that white to just rest right on top of that surface area. I'm going to do a tighter cut in here. And if you need to use a smaller brush in this tighter area, you certainly can. My recommendation would be your little buddy brush. Cut in work, you'd hold it more like a pencil to do the line work. And then of course you can turn that brush also just kind of over to the side. And again, I really like having the dark outline because it definitely preserves my work. And especially for beginners, they don't want to lose that shape because you work so hard to do that trace. And then sometimes it can be a little bit scary if you get one wrong swoosh, it's too aggressive, and then maybe you feel like you covered up your work and you can't find it. So again, this will bleed through a little bit, makes it very nice and easy, not nearly as intimidating for beginners. I'm going to mix up a little bit more of our Viridian and our primary cyan blue and our titanium white. A little bit of rough cut in here. A little bit of water. And water makes it very fluid. Helps it go right into that space. A little bit of white. And then have to do a little bit of that gray we mixed up earlier to pull in little sections of that. The water. Viridian, primary cyan blue. White. Keep working that in. The water. Pulls. A little bit of white right over the top. You can be a little bit sloppy with it because again, it's bleeding right through in there. For that soft gray, we'll work that in. A little bit more of the white. Long vertical pulls here. And as you're doing these light drags across the surface area, you want to hold that brush more over to the side. And then we'll also come in and do some more dramatic palette knife work towards the end, but this gives us a nice little bit of that wash of that light in the background. All right, so let's go ahead and rinse out. Making sure that all the sky behind the cardinal, so we're all set there. Did a little double take. Yeah, I think we're good. Okay, so next up, we're going to start to work in some of this beautiful, like a mix. There's actually a lot of coral and pink and red in here, so it's not just a pure red. So I've got some primary magenta. This is a beautiful pink. It's like a hot pink. And then we'll also be using some of our cadmium red. Not typically, it's hard to lift off. There we go. Okay. All right, another little dollop of that. And that's our cadmium red. Then we're going to have some cadmium orange. Little touches of this in here too. And we can lighten it up with more of that. There's also tiny little touches of the blue that still are in there. Maybe along with some cadmium yellow. Okay, so I'm going to be switching over to my smaller brushes now for a little bit. We're going to use Little Buddy here, and I'm going to get some white. Rid of that. Primary magenta, and then a little bit of white, and that cadmium red. A lot of that color in here. And bits of that orange will kind of mix in there too, that beautiful coral color. All right, I'm going to start with just some cadmium red here. I still have those other residual colors on the brush. So it'll just kind of add into it, make it really pretty. We're just going to go with it here. There's our Little Buddy, holding it like a pencil, doing that nice line edge over the top. Our cut-in work, we're going to come in and around this little black area. And we're going to start with our cadmium red here. And as we come out into the outside here, I do quick little dashes. Just kind of lift off with a light hand when I get towards the end here. And I'm going to be coming back in with a little bit brush too to do some more texture and feather this out here as well. But we're just getting a nice color to begin with. And to get a little bit more of an opaque coverage, I'm going to turn this handle a little bit more over to the side. Cover that. White. A quick little drag through there, a little highlight. Back into that cadmium red. Work and through here. If you go over your black just a little bit, no worries. We're going to be coming back in with black paint at the very end. I'll be touching into a little bit of the white too as I go. Do a little bit of that feathering into this. Get more of the cadmium red here. And then we're going to go ahead and just work all over the surface area with our cadmium red. Just get a nice, I'm going to shift gears to that. Just get a nice base of it all over here. And then we're going to come back in with our little bit and do a little bit more texture. See, that's one more nice reason to have your bleeding through, because there's my leg still showing through, no worries. Bit of water, help you cover the surface area. So just more of that cadmium red. We'll go ahead and get all this covered. In there, getting more of that. Again, we're just getting a nice base coat of color over the surface area. And a little fine point there. As we get up to the edge, we're going to just lift off with a light hand. So good coverage. So now we're going to start to play with some of those different textures that we're going to start to bring in. I'm going to reload. I'm going to get more of our cadmium red to kind of play with more of that. And I go back to my mama brush because we have some bigger sections here on the road, a little bit more of this white. Let's put more of the white and the primary magenta. And I'm just going to do like little holes on this rest of the chart here, holding it more over to the side. Do little side strokes of that light pink over the top. Light pulls. And those little accents of color. So you still have that little trace right there to kind of show you where some of that highlight begins. This is more of that white. There's like a little touch of that primary magenta in there, so it kind of makes it nice light pink. Cadmium red and just kind of do a nice little wet to wet mix in there. And then I'm going to pick up a little bit of the primary magenta and the cadmium red, both of those together. And we're going to work that here underneath and just lay it on parallel to the canvas. Just let that texture just rest right on top. Primary magenta, cadmium red. Just do a little dark shadow in there of that. You out the excess there, leave this in the water for just a second. We do a little bit of our black with our primary magenta. Use our little bit brush. We're gonna do a little twirl in there. And we're gonna just kind of push this in a little bit of that shadow. Here, give it a little bit of a shadow. Thicker amounts now of the primary magenta. We're gonna work this into that tip of the feather and just light little touches. And then when we get to the edge, we're going to lift off with a light hand. Leave light little feathering strokes in here. One more here underneath the belly here. With that little shadow that comes in around the little leg. And my leg is going to be a little bit more of this darker black with that primary magenta. And I'm going to a little bit of orange to it because that'll give me a brown. A little twirl in there. I'm going to go ahead and work in those legs just so that we don't lose those now. And work that in there. Add a little bit of water. A little twirl. Let's add a little more water. A little twirl. That makes that paint more fluid. Easier to work into those little tiny areas. Follow right into those lines. More water. If you're still seeing little bits of white canvas kind of peek through like little tiny circles, then you can add more water, helps it flow into that space. Got that dark little section there, and then I do a little bit of a shadow in here, little pulls with that, and then do little tiny feathering strokes all the way down. Look at that shadow. And we're going to rinse out and then dry off. Now we're going to start to go back into those lighter shades. I'm going to grab, make sure I've got my more of that primary magenta. Just in case, we might want a little bit of some violet nearby too. Look at that. This is that orange, cadmium orange with the cadmium red and the primary magenta. So it's kind of in a nice, peachy coral look. Just going to start to do maybe a bit more white. Feathering strokes in here. Little tiny fast strokes that have a little bit of a curve to them. Starting to lay in that texture. A little bit of white in there too really helps that texture pop. You can do like a big section of white in there too, kind of lay on more texture. A little tiny feathering strokes here. Again, just like little chunks of that darker color in there too. These little feathers come out of the side of the face here. So it's kind of a playful little mix of all these like white and the pink and the red and sometimes little touch of the orange. You can kind of play back and forth with it. And when a light hits it, then I kind of touch in with a little bit more white. Back over this top with a bit more texture. Light touch with the little bit brush to let that texture of the paint just kind of rest right on top. Little tiny pulls up here at the top here. The side pulls away from that, and then pick up a little bit more white and pull that in. Put more texture in there. And a little bit more water to make those little tiny ends a little bit more fluid and fine as they kind of extend out. And then there's little tiny touches with little hints of this like light lavender that come into play. So do a little bit of white with my violet. Just gonna do little tiny touches of that in here and subtle. Little tiny touches of that violet really is really pretty in there. And there's a few more in here too. It's real subtle. Runs all the way down the length. Primary magenta. Lots of little feathery strokes in there. Very pretty. Let's go ahead and do the little variant squash out. We're going to come back in with some, this is a mix of some primary magenta and our cadmium red. We're going to mix those two up. Nice little twirl in there. And then let's go ahead and just go over the top of the beak here. A little bit of water. And then it is such a help that that line leads through. So we can see where we can still come in and do a little bit of that white highlight and also know where the line is that comes into the beak. And take that. Put your white here. And just a little hole right in this section here. It's a light drag. White line right through there, light drag there. Rinse out again here. And then I'm going to come into a teeny amount of the black. And then we're going to just with a really fine hand, just come into the middle here, re-accentuate the black right down to the edge of the beak. And then I'm going to start to clean up a little bit around that beak there. And tidy up that black. You can remove any of that white peekaboo canvas is still showing, paint that in. And then we're going to do tiny little bits. I'm going to add a little bit of water here to that black and twirl into the paint. And then little tiny pulls, more of that black texture that comes out into the rest of the feathers. It's not just a hard line. And this up in here, do a little bit more of that black in there. And be really gentle and careful around the eye. I'm going to keep that just the way it is. With that soft line around it, so we don't lose that shape. And just do a little bit of texture here, and it kind of come up. Little tiny dashes. And then there's a little touch of that primary cyan blue in there. Little highlights. Back in with that cadmium red. A little pull into that soft blend. And then do a little bit of white. And just go right back into that soft blend in there. And rinse out. Okay, now we're going to start to work on our lovely little branch here. And so we need to blend in some brown. All right, so we got a lot of white nearby. We'll be using that too to lighten it up, but we're going to start with our orange and our black. We're going to have those two come together. That's going to make our brown. We're going to lighten up that brown. See, now we've got it with that white. So it's orange, black, and white. That's going to give us a nice light brown. A little bit of water. Let that be more fluid. And we're going to start to work into this branch here. Using my little bit brush and just do short little textural strokes in here. Very carefully come in and around that little claw. Be careful in here too. And for the most part, this holds feeling like you hold it kind of like a pencil. And don't forget to keep, when you go back in, do a little twist into it so you get a nice fine point. Helps you with a little bit more of that precision when you're working into those smaller areas. A little more white. Push that in, gives a little bit more texture to that brown. And just little pulls of white into it while the paint's still wet. Little horizontal pulls. Moving this into the rest of the branch. A little white. Let's mix up some more orange, black. Turn this just a little bit. Get a better angle. I do a little twirl so I get a nice fine point in around this little section here. I'm just doing chunky little strokes into that shape. And as it comes out to this nice little fine point, you can do this little slightly pull out with a light hand so that it does end with a really tiny little lift at the edge. And I occasionally add in some darker brown in with this, or little touches of the white to kind of give it some different shades as I start to push in the branch. Black, orange, and the white. Going to be the base, and we're going to start to add in some accent colors too. This gives us a nice foundation. All right, so we have little touches. Our primary cyan blue. We're going to just, the brush is still loaded up with that base color, but I'm going to go ahead and push into that primary cyan blue and just do little pushes of that to the branch. Color. Blend between those two. More of the white, softening that up a little bit. Again, it's just little accents. I have a little bit more in there, a little touch of it there with that blue. Little pulls of it through here. Little light threads of it. I'm gonna go back in with that primary magenta, cadmium red, a little touches. Right there, little touches. A little accent here and there. And south. And then we're going to come up with a sage green now. So bright yellow green. Okay, so a little pea size amount of that. And then we're going to add just a little bit of black to it. It's white. There is our sage green. Pour more there, get more control with the brush. Tiny drags of it along the branch. Drags along the branch here. Have a rough, loose sketch of it. And we'll follow up. Okay. All right, very pretty. All right, so I have a little bit of accent on the feet that I need to do. So I'm going to be doing this with some violet and a touch of white. I'll be making that lavender again. Let's add some water. Floral in there. And we're just going to do like a little tiny accent line on top of the feet here. A few accents here. You see any place that needs just a little bit more texture, certainly add that. All right, now extra little tricks you can do. If you can leave your eye kind of the way it is, which is the simplest way for beginners, since we worked that in with our permanent marker, or you can do a really super, with a fine, very fine hand, you can do with your end of your brush here, just a real tiny little line around the edge. And then just a little tiny dot. It's right in the center, kind of accentuate that. But then you're going to have to go back over it with the black to help soften it a little bit. So I add a little bit of water to this, little twirl. And we're just going to come up right next to it again and just barely go right over it and soften that. .
It almost looks like a really dark charcoal gray around that eye. And then I'm gonna come back here with this pure black and just gonna come in around the edge. And then you want to make sure I'm blacken the other part of the eye here too. And if you're not feeling like your hand's steady enough for this, the other thing you can do too is you can do it with your permanent marker. Just the important thing to remember is just to make sure that you wait for all your paint to dry.
Because the permanent marker will basically just get killed. If it hits wet paint, it just will dry up and not be able to be used anymore. Let me do a little bit more of a touch up here, right next to the edge. A little nuance there of black feathers that kind of come up. One, twirl. All right, now theoretically you could be done at this point. But there's another move that you can make with your palette knife, which is really fun. And so it's using a lot of the white paint in the sky. So I've got a lot of white kind of left over here. Mine, but on yours, what I would recommend is just filling brush here. Get titanium white. Put a dollop of that. And with your palette knife, you can do like a firm press in here. Make sure it's on the flat side of that surface area. And then you can do some really fun like drags across the background, just to create some of that texture in your sky. And it's really fun and dramatic with the white. You can also do some with just light blue too. It's a little bit more subtle. Again, just using the flat side of that palette knife. Close as I can. Side there, just do light vertical drags, and it just creates this really fun texture. I'm gonna do a turn. A little bit of an angle as I get up next to that shape. And then I want to just go back to that uniform look of more that vertical pull. Just little tiny, a little careful here, just little touches. Turn it around and go from the other side here in a second. back the other direction here. Real carefully kind of work in little tiny touches in there. And do just a little tiny, that's about all you need, that one little space. And if you want to do a little bit more play with like that lighter light blue, that's way too dark. It's gonna be too crazy on top. But you can make it really, really light. If you could do some of that too, where you do that light blue over the top, that's also really pretty. Light drags, adding that texture in. Yeah, that's very pretty. Different, you may just, it's up to you. It's an optional step, but it's fun to play with that, practice. All right, I'm gonna do one more little thing here. I'm gonna come back in. Little bit brush, and we're gonna do some orange and the black. A little bit of that dark brown. And swirl. Make sure we got some water in there so it's nice and fluid. And we're working those little feet too again to make sure they come in over the top of the branch. All right. All right, so the final step would be to sign your masterpiece and a few helpful hints on that. What I tell most beginners to do is to use the permanent marker, but make sure that this all sets up and dries. Then it's very nice. It gives you a lot of precision and control to do a nice tiny little signature in the bottom corner here. Great little tip for beginners. If you are wanting to do it with the brush, then the helpful hint here is to do it much like what I just did with the little feet. So you want to get your black or any contrasting color there. Make sure you have a little bit of water to where it's a little bit soupy on your plate. And then do that little twirl. So that'll squeegee out any excess waters to where you don't get like a water run or too big of a drop or anything like that. But it gives you a lot of precision, nice fine point on the end of the brush. And then you can just very carefully just reload quite a bit and then sign your masterpiece in the bottom corner. And then you will be all set. All right, so that's our beautiful cardinal. She looks great. Actually, this would be a he. Yes, because the bright red ones are the boys and the brown cardinals are the girls. Yeah. So, wow, I knew that. Yeah, I'm proud of myself. Okay, so again, thank you so much for painting with us today. It has been a true pleasure. We're sending much love to y'all today. And again, just have a beautiful rest of the day. Stay warm, or if it's summertime right now, then stay cool. But yeah, again, everything that you need is going to be on our website at tipsyartist.com. And if you have any questions, please let me know. Either email me, Tiffany@tipsyartist.com, or leave a comment to any questions. Happy to help. But yeah, y'all have a beautiful rest of the day. Sending much love. Toodles.